Let's stay with Cedrick Nkabinde, who accuses Masemula and Mkhwanazi of intimidation, adding that they are trying to remove crucial evidence from the devices that were seized.
And while we're busy preparing, and our days are about to come, this harassment is starting, this intimidating is starting. Our gadgets now have to be seized. The very same gadgets that contain evidence that we are going to use during Nhlanhla Commission and ad hoc committee in Parliament. So the question is, the timing is questionable. Isn't it that they want to remove the evidence from our gadgets? Because we've got a very, very valuable evidence that we want to present in the commission and ad hoc committee. Now, General Masemula, General Mkhwanazi, they are busy there in ad hoc committee. At the same time, they are sending police to come and harass us so that they can remove our gadgets with our evidence.
All right, let's immediately get some analysis now on the dramatic raids and what they mean for the ongoing investigations into Mkhwanazi's explosive claims, especially against Sibiya and Nkabinde. Joining me for this conversation is the former general within the Western Cape, SAPS. He was the former detectives head there, Jeremy Vearey, and alongside him is security expert Eldred de Klerk. To both of my guests, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. Can I start this conversation with just getting your thoughts, both of you, before we get deeper into some of the finer details? Let me start with you, General Vearey. How or what should South Africans think of what is going on right now, these multiple raids we are seeing?
I think if one trusts the investigative process, remember the allegations that might have led to this was tied to a case that was still under investigation. So if one trusts that process, one would trust that the obtaining of warrants for seizing certain material evidence or electronic evidence, that was signed by a magistrate in particular. Okay, that's first. That because of that signature around that particular warrant, the case has progressed significantly from the time that we heard from the mouths of General Mkhwanazi and others that there are such matters being investigated. So firstly, the optics, the timing, all of those things aside, just looking at it clinically, the important thing what South Africans should do, and I'm not saying they must just accept it blindly, but bearing in mind that the magistrate has issued a warrant here in this particular case, that between when they heard about these allegations before and what happened now, it would be the logical thing to do. So that's the first point we should recognize. The second point we should recognize is, I watched now what General Sibiya said. It is unfortunate and sad. I understand his emotions, but if he, as a detective, removes his emotions out of the picture, then I'm sure he will grasp the fact that if a case has matured to the point where a magistrate issues a warrant for the seizure of items, that you just go with it. You accept it, because that unfortunately is a reality you have to accept. I'm not quite sure of imputing deeper motives to everybody, but that I would say. The other issue that is important, if you are on suspension technically, you have no more right of access to any material of the organization, cell phones, laptops, whatever, because remember, if you have a laptop, we have laptops. I remember when I was in the detective services, I can access, as a general, given my profile on CAS, I could access multiple systems, including through my laptop. So, I mean, it's obviously if I suspended, the organization would not want me to have access to other further information inside the thing. So it's a normal process that if you're on suspension or something,
Yeah.
the items belonging to the organization that would allow you access still inside,
Yeah.
the information gets confiscated.
Let's give Eldred de Klerk his chance as well. How are you making sense of what's going on?
Well, further to what Jeremy had said, while investigations are intrusive, they invade your privacy, they are disruptive, and putting aside as you said, the optics and the perceptions that this is aimed at disrupting possible testimony in a disciplinary hearing or at the ad hoc committee or at Nhlanhla, you would hope that those tasked with executing those warrants, raiding people's, individuals' personal space, upsetting their families, would do so and accord them the proper dignity to do so. We also have, and that you would treat those you encounter with the necessary civility and dignity. None of the three individuals whose home was raided today could have been defined as high risk and or possibly would fight those who seek entry into their facility. Unless that can be said categorically that there was a risk to those who were going to execute the warrant, you would hope that they would continue to treat those they encounter with the necessary civility and dignity as per the Constitution.
Yeah.
The second thing I have to say about this is that the problem is that perception is reality. So if you create the perception that this happens prior to somebody having their day to answer the allegations put towards them, days before, when you had months to prepare a case, as Jeremy has already said, take it to a magistrate and acquire the necessary signal or digital evidence or electronic evidence to support to strengthen your case or make your case, then we have to consider or have sympathy, though, for those who have faced these raids today, that they feel that the timing of this is to undermine their right of reply to allegations put to them.
Yeah. All right. Before we come to you, Jeremy Vearey, perhaps it's worth reminding South Africans what was told just recently at the ad hoc committee in Parliament by General Mkhwanazi as to what we are seeing now. So let's have a listen for a moment to General Mkhwanazi, who was at the ad hoc committee just a few days ago.
Then all these people that played a role in shutting down my investigation, that which I warned about on the 2nd of July, is being investigated now. So I do hope that pretty soon we're going to effect arrest and we're going to be in court.
And what is the charge? They're defeating the ends of justice.
That's the main one. There's a collusion to defeat ends of justice from the evidence that has been uncovered.
And that's based on an affidavit that's in the docket.
Yeah, because I needed to have a point of departure. National Commissioner tell me, did you authorize this thing, yes or no? He says, I didn't. I said, write it down. There was a delay in him giving that. A delay. Eventually, he said to me, okay, here's it. So when he did that, then I knew that, okay, someone will have to then go to court and explain why this. So we started there with investigation. Statements of Khumalo, statement of Sentumule, all the people that played the part except Sibiya and them. We did not take statement from them. The team is investigating further. The investigation is ongoing.
General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi there before the ad hoc committee in Parliament. General Vearey, let me come to you. The people whose homes are being raided right now, based on what Mkhwanazi has told us just in that clip, that this is an investigation that is trying to determine the collusion to defeat the ends of justice, as he puts it. Can these people argue that at these inquiries that are ongoing right now, that they are being intimidated and perhaps they may not be able to come through to these inquiries? Do they have that right?
It would be very difficult to prove something like that. Let me first understand. As a detective, we don't investigate people. We investigate a defined crime. If it makes up to it, and we go gather the facts. And if your conduct corresponds to what that crime describes, whether you're a minister or whether you're a general or whatever, that is so. You know, it's not that we start off investigating you. We investigate a crime defined like defeatist, the ends of justice or murder, etc. We don't yet know all of the facts. We might have speculation, and we build up our evidence to link you to create the nexus then with whatever individual's name comes up in the particular crime. So that firstly one, it would be very difficult to argue if you understand detective methodology, investigative methodology, to make an argument of that. So I think that first needs to be asked of the other parties. If you say that is so, show us how the normal process of investigation has been subverted to achieve that particular end. And if you cannot demonstrate that, then all you are communicating is a feeling and an opinion without any substance in fact.
Eldred de Klerk, let's come to the other raid here, or at least an attempted raid at the property of the Minister of Police, who is currently on a leave of absence. Again, I refer back to what Mkhwanazi said recently, and that is that they are on the trail of the minister, so to speak, because he has a trust fund that is used by the family, and for him, they are searching for gold, and up until they are able to find gold, only then can they start using the word corruption or possible corruption against him. Is this part and parcel of that?
Absolutely. The interesting part is, though, that they had a warrant, which they secured, as Jeremy explained. They have to go to court. They have to build an argument or submit an argument as to why they want a warrant that will be invasive and intrusive, and go into somebody's place and disrupt their lives. They were issued that warrant. We take that as said and as and accepted that due process was followed. They went there and they couldn't execute the warrant. We don't understand why not. If the minister wasn't home, was there anybody else home? Yes, you would want the person whose property is being raided to be present to witness firsthand what you seize, and so they can't come back and say you took things that they didn't say. They can always leave an inventory. You can have an inventory. Sorry, you can have a representative present when they do so, but they don't really need all of that in place. So there is clearly something that the detectives know and understand. They believe they have a case, and now they are ensuring that they now go and put together the elements of that case, including what they believe might be present at the home of the minister.
Jeremy Vearey, if they are unable to gain access to a property and they have a warrant, what other measures can there be for them to ultimately gain access, or are they going to leave it as is right now?
Okay, let me explain. If I go do a drug raid, for example, like I was involved in, where I have a warrant, okay, I penetrate that premise to find that particular item which might be flushed down the toilet or might be made to disappear. So I can enter that premise, use the necessary force required, break down doors under the power of that warrant to get access to that premises with a purpose. It's not about you, with a purpose of extracting an evidence that is important, or what we call in the Criminal Procedure Act, the Article 20 article. So you are empowered to do that. But what is not ideal is this. You see, is to do that when you want to have a clear inventory in which you want whoever is the suspect or whoever you're seizing something from to be an actual witness to that seizure and to sign eventually the inventory of what you have seized. Because we come there with an inventory and we stand next to you, we take you room by room. Is this yours? Yes. We write it up, and at the end of all the items you sign to confirm that. That is to prevent, often when you raid an empty place of people saying you stole 20 grand in the safe or something like that. So the ideal process here is on the side of caution. It doesn't matter whether it's a minister or not. If the items are still going to be there later today, do your work properly. Yeah. The first thing I would have expected of the raid on the minister, that there would have been some surveillance work prior to that to determine whether your suspect, in brackets, is on the premises or whether some degree of confirmation, maybe through a source for that matter, whether the items that you are looking for might be in the place before you actually go there to find it, so that you're not fishing. And I don't know whether that was done or not, but I would consider it an important a priori procedure to go check and to make a few checks whether the items you are going to find will be there, and preferably it must be seized in the presence of whoever it belongs to or is associated with that item.
Eldred de Klerk, Jeremy Vearey does give us now an understanding of why there were vehicles surveying the property of Shadrack Sibiya, because he complains that at 3 a.m. there were vehicles moving up and down with registration plates that appear to be fake. And this, according to him, was not only intimidation, but it did not take into account that he has an elderly mother on the property and he has children on the property. I'm now trying to get to the element of the feelings that Jeremy Vearey spoke about, to say, if people like Cedrick Nkabinde, the chief of staff of the minister, says, should anything happen to me, you must know that General Masemula, the National Commissioner of the Police, is responsible for whatever will happen to me in terms of my personal safety. What should we make of those emotional statements?
Well, look, I'm assured that what Jeremy's already explained, General Sibiya knows. It's routine practice. He understands how these things work. He could be conflating, and maybe deliberately so, we don't know. Everybody is playing to ensure that they position themselves in the best possible way in this public theater that is unfortunately unfolding in front of our very eyes. And he could be conflating the threat that was communicated to him against his life and the processes of ensuring that an investigation is executed at the optimal time when the suspect, in inverted commas, is home, and when you have reasonable suspicion or knowledge that that which you want to gather as evidence is present. So to conflate those two, to say, yes, there's a threat to my life, there's people outside, while I know at the back of my mind that some of what is happening outside my house is probably the kind of routine practice that detectives execute, as Jeremy's already explained. And So we have to take almost everything that everybody's saying in this theater as it unfolds with a pinch of salt, understanding that there's going to be accusations, there's going to be counter accusations, going to be recriminations, and there's going to be counter recriminations until everybody is sitting opposite each other or in a court of law where they can explain with legal counsel and have been duly cautioned that what they're about to say and what has been seized, that all of these things will play itself out and it will be judged in that forum rather than the public theater that we're currently seeing.
Yeah, and I think it goes exactly to the point that Jeremy Vearey made earlier, that optics aside, this is the work and it's not about you, but it's about the investigation. Talking about optics, Jeremy Vearey, I want to come to you next, but let's have a listen to this quickly.
All of them are from KZN, of course, and that is unfortunate how one province decides to behave the way it behaves, and the whole country is allowing this thing to happen, to carry on the way it's carrying on. I'm not angry, I'm hurt. I feel like Joseph, whose brothers actually threw him in the pit, and they ended up selling him, because I've been working with my colleagues and we've been working very well, but for my colleagues to turn on me the way they turned on me, that's beyond me.
General Vearey, the National Intervention Unit personnel that were at the property of General Sibiya are all from KZN, as he puts it. Does jurisdiction matter here?
No, jurisdiction doesn't matter. I think the first thing, I'm not quite sure how General Sibiya can be absolutely certain with people with balaclavas that they're all from KwaZulu-Natal. But maybe it's an assumption he makes. Maybe he's heard one speak Zulu for that matter, but then not even that would be a basis on which to determine a person is from KwaZulu-Natal, because I know we speak Zulu all over the country these days. But the National Intervention Unit, it will be determined by what unit would be available to execute the thing. And I think I would take it with a bit of pinch of salt, especially if people wear balaclavas and some of them happen to speak Zulu, that is enough to assume they're all from KZN.
Can I quickly ask you a follow-up on that? Exactly what you're saying, the observation that most, if not all of these people, at least as explained by those that were raided, that they were wearing balaclavas. Is that standard practice, that they don't show their faces? And so how do you know that this is a law enforcement officer or some criminal?
Well, if somebody comes to your house with a warrant in the uniform and you are aware it is the uniform in this case, you're aware it's the uniform of the intervention unit. You're not some civilian who's not quite sure whether this is a camouflage board, a Pick and Pay or something like that. You're actually certain on the basis of your own experience as a police officer. So that issue, I'm not quite sure how I would weigh that as a factor in this particular matter. But like I said, as to the wearing of balaclavas, I think what we need to ask ourselves, because a lot of these things are threat determined or risk analysis determined. And it's a normal practice when you're dealing with certain level of kind of, if one takes it at its word, we're not saying the facts has pointed that, but if we're dealing at organized crime, all over the world, you see specialized units acting in the executing of raids and the executing of raids. Look at Italy, for that matter, UK, and people cover the specialized units wear balaclavas to cover their identity.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's perfectly normal. If you have a problem with that, ask them to show their appointment certificates.
All right, understood. Eldred de Klerk, let's wind this down now. And I'd like to bring into the equation what has been said here, not only by Mkhwanazi, but I think it was this afternoon by Shadrack Sibiya, that his treatment at the hands of colleagues, he takes umbrage, and in fact, he goes on to say, at first, his relationship with the National Commissioner was fine, to a point where the Commissioner even visited his home. But after this, it appears that these relations have broken down. So my question to you is that this is now cop versus cop, what Mkhwanazi refers to as blue on blue. What is the likely impact of this and the whole imagery of this to the South African civilian who is watching this playing out?
Well, the interesting part is that we understand these tensions have been present for a while, and the police themselves have been going through various cycles of turmoil and infighting, if I can put it like that. And yes, the public is rightfully concerned. I think that's why the National Commissioner, General Masemola, tried to reassure the South African public that the South African police service is not in distress. Well, I don't know if we would completely agree with that, because on the face of it, it is disconcerting, to say the very least, that you have this blue on blue, and some people would say violence. However, if somebody is under investigation, you don't discharge or show your hands before you're ready to act. So of course I'm going to act and smile and be friendly with you until such time as I'm ready to execute that warrant. So blue and blue, that's what's happening. It's been happening for a while. Fortunately now it's playing itself out in the public theater, and it points to, for me, to what needs to happen next, rather than being too concerned about the current moment.
Jeremy Vearey, you literally have under a minute to tell us whether this is a good thing. Is this a good thing that is happening right now, this blue on blue, as we put it, or should we have reason to worry?
Yeah, I don't think we should look at it as one versus the other. A crime was investigated, a person's conduct, a warrant was obtained in relation to that crime, that the person's conduct corresponded with the elements of that crime, and certain items in the person's possession would be important for solving that crime. It doesn't matter whether you're the minister, the president, or a police officer. So to subjectivize the issue in the way of speaking about brothers and Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat or whatever, I can't remember the reference exactly, is very unfortunate to hear a detective relating to a matter emotively in this particular way. However, if there's merit to some of the complaints made by General Sibiya, he should definitely take it up with IPID. Because if he's saying the conduct is motivated by some other motive besides doing the job, then there might be an overreach here or a treading beyond the parameters as far as the motive is concerned with the actions that were displayed. If that is what he's arguing, then he's free to go to IPID like any other normal citizen would and complain.
Gentlemen, to both of you, thank you very much for your time.